Hello, and welcome to week 3. I'm going to review some of our objectives this week and then highlight a couple of areas that I think might help for the assignment and our discussion post. Our objectives this week center around this concept of communication and public relations. Now, I've read through each of your introductions, and I noted that many of you have public relations experience, and that'll certainly help you throughout this course, especially this week as we focus on public relations. For those who may not have any public relations experience, no worries. You actually have public relations experience as a consumer, whether you realize it or not, and you'll be able to draw upon those experiences in addition to the readings that we have. And so you'll be able to apply the public relations principles regardless of how much public relations experience you may have. So let's get to our objectives. The first one is understanding what is meant by this concept of public relations. Makes sense. We're going to talk about public relations. It helps to have a common understanding of what we mean by public relations. And then we're going to delve into the unique perspective that public relations brings to the concept of strategic communication. There's quite a bit of debate in the industry about where public relations falls in the area of strategic communication. In the military, for the past decade or so, we've been struggling with what we call public affairs, which is our term for public relations, and whether or not it needs to be a subset of strategic communication, or should public affairs or public relations be separate from strategic communication, or, some have argued, perhaps public affairs needs to be the umbrella under which strategic communication lies. Lots of different ways to work that challenge, and it really depends on the organization, the mission, things like that. And I'm sure the same is true for your organization. And some of you may be able to share some experiences you've had where communication fell out in different areas within the organization under marketing and advertising, public relations separately, things like that. You'll also want to apply the concept of public relations to your organization and explain how it influences your communication strategy. Okay, so as I was mentioning before, where public relations falls out, the mission that it has, the people to whom the director of public relations or the person responsible for public relations reports, that all influences how it impacts the mission of strategic communication. So it'll be interesting to see how you apply that this week as part of your objectives. You'll be writing an annotated bibliography. I encourage you to spend quite a bit of time on this annotated bibliography. You'll find that time well spent here makes your paper so much more easier because you'll have a lot of background from which you can pull when you're writing that paper. We're asking that you annotate 10 to 15 articles. Make sure those articles are peer-reviewed academic articles. You'll find those in the Purdue library, and when you get in there you can see that you can check limit your search to those peer-reviewed academic articles. Make sure that all of those are peer-reviewed. You also want to talk about the main contribution that it'll make to your paper. So don't just summarize the article. Some of that will be helpful, but I'm more interested in how this article is going to inform the paper that you're going to write. And of course you'll want a full citation in APA standard. Most of you have been doing a pretty good job with APA. I've tried to note some areas where there may need to be some improvement, and just know that's a constant struggle that we all go through. I've been writing APA for a decade now, and there's still some areas where I have to go back and check the manual and make sure that I'm doing it correctly. And so don't get too frustrated with that. Just know that it's something that you're going to want to improve upon along your academic journey. So that's your individual interest paper, the annotated bibliography. You also have a discussion area this week, of course, and you're going to answer some questions related to the publics. Some people refer to this as stakeholders. Who are the different publics or stakeholders, and how does your organization attempt to cultivate relationships with those publics? Which publics pose the biggest challenge to your organization, and why? How do the readings from this week suggest strategies for improving your organization's public relations process? This is the kind of applied learning that this course is all about. So you take the readings, you take your experiences, other observations that you have within your organization, and how do those two interact? How can you take what we learned from the readings and apply them to your organization? An example, Lan and Kim in 2009 had 2 research questions. I'm going to read those for you and then give you an idea of how you might apply that to the discussion. Their first research question was, how do different types of publics engage in different communication behaviors? Research question 2, how do different types of publics perceive problem situations differently? So if I were answering the discussion questions, I would take Lan and Kim 2009, I would quote those research questions, and I would apply them to my organization. In other words, how do different types of publics engage in different communication behaviors? You probably have some examples of different publics and their different communication behaviors. The same is true for different publics and the problems and how they perceive those problems. If you get to the root of how a public perceives a problem, you're well along the journey to finding out a solution, a public relations solution to helping meet that challenge or that need. Well, listen, that's it for now. Remember, stay ahead with all assignments, stay engaged in the discussion board, and enjoy this time of learning.